But now the full grid of the British Grand Prix of 1991 here in ideal weather conditions. Mansell pole, Senna second, then Patrese and Berger in third and fourth places, followed by Prost and Alesi. The two Benettons, followed by Gutermin and Modena, then JJ Leto. The first British driver, Mark Blundell, 12th. His teammate Brundle, 14th. Then Pirot, and bringing up the rear of the grid, Johnny Herbert in the Lotus, his teammate Mika Hakkinen and Michele Alboreto, who has qualified the footwork car in spite of very considerable transmission problems as a result of their decision to move from the Porsche V12 engine to the Hart DFR V8, and they've had to completely redesign and rebuild the transmission in just 3 weeks, a mammoth undertaking. They've succeeded in doing it as a result of an enormous amount of very hard work at the factory at Milton Keynes, but it is still a bit suspect. Now you can see there, as we look at Nigel Mansell sitting impassively in his Williams, that the tyres of his car are completely enrobed in the electrically heated blankets, which get the tyres up to racing temperature as near as makes no difference. And that, of course, saves drivers having to wait for 2 or 3 laps before they really give it a bootful. But it doesn't give any particular team an advantage, because any team in Grand Prix racing that wants to have that equipment can have it. It's a fairly big budget item in itself, but in comparison with the costs of many other things that make up the car, it's a pinprick, and it's a very important addition. So Nigel sitting there, the umbrella, it's getting quite hot at Silverstone, I can tell you that. And in that cockpit, it will soon be hotter still. There have been temperatures of about 150 degrees at some of the races, like Brazil, where it gets very hot indeed. And there's just a vestigial windscreen in front of Nigel Mansell's visor and most of the other cars. Look at the heat haze. I told you it was hot, and that's how hot it is. And now you can almost feel the tension rising, because the instruction has been given slowly to clear the grid. The officials are moving away. The mechanics are wheeling away the pressurized air bottles that are used to start the engines of these cars. And very soon the grid will be completely clear, and the signal will be given to start on the parade lap, the final rolling lap before the 59-lap British Grand Prix begins.
So engines and away they go on the parade lap, warming tyres up. Nigel Mansell, the pole man, to lead them round. So Copse Corner survives from the old circuit with only minor modifications, and now we move up through Maggots, and this is where it changes. They turn right, then left, then right again through the Beckett's complex as it now is, and that's very quick indeed through the first right and left, and putting enormous G, 4.5 G in the corners, with 9 accounted momentarily as they change direction. Now down the Hanger Straight, you see Mansell going away and into Stowe, which is now a slower corner as it tightens up into 4th gear, and they go around and then they keep turning right. You can see the old circuit now going straight on, and they go down through the Vale, which is a wiggly complex, and then hard on the brakes, where we expect overtaking to be possible here for the 2nd gear left-hander, that you see them now in the distance there, still in 2nd gear, tight right, and then up through the gearbox as they accelerate out through the old Stowe corner. Sorry, the club corner rather, old club corner. And now back onto the old circuit, the old perimeter road of the airfield here, through Abbey Curve. And that's Mansell giving it a boot up through Abbey, and then we come back to more new, under the bridge, and here, Bridge Corner. And the definition of this corner from the drivers who've been on it, is unanimous, and it is mighty. And for that they mean it's a big hairy corner, and it's really quick. In qualifying yesterday on the sticky tyres with the light fuel load, the really quick men were taking it absolutely flat, but it was mighty exciting doing that. When I say flat, I mean no lift off the throttle at all. in race trim with a full fuel load on, and even later in the race today they'll be just lifting, but they'll still be taking the corner in top. A little lift. Now, the second gear as they come round the what one might call the stadium complex with all the grandstands around. Second gear, they go left and left again, then a short squirt down that little straight to where Mansell leads them round. Second gear for the right-hander there. Little short squirt where he is now. There he goes. And then the another right-hander and out onto the circuit, back onto the old circuit, and onto the old, rejoining the old Woodcut corner. So that was Senna coming up alongside Mansell there, just practicing a start. So we look down on the front row pair. They will be leading, Mansell will be leading the field in as slowly as he can now, because all 26 cars behind him have to take up their grid positions and stop in the right place before the red light will go on, and the starter has to be satisfied that everybody's in position. And there is Mansell looking straight into his eyes, but with the darkened visor we can't see much inside his helmet. But he will now be trying hard to relax as the field all come slowly onto their grid position, and when they're all stopped there will be a signal from the back of the grid. A green flag will be waved. That is the signal for the starter that everybody's ready. He will then press the red button, 4 seconds approximately of red light, green, and we're off.
25 will be off because Michele Alboreto, I am very sorry to say, is missing from the grid in the footwork. Now, watch the lights then. 59 laps of the British Grand Prix are about to begin. Spun the Jordan, but Senna leads into Copse. Nigel Mansell is second after a searing start from the Brazilian, and Riccardo Patrese has spun. Well, 2 spinners even before the competitors have done half a lap, and you can see already that Ayrton Senna and Nigel Mansell are pulling away from one of the Benettons. I think it was Nelson Piquet in third position.
Yes, and the starter certainly held the cars on the red a long time as Mansell makes a dive inside Senna, and he's taking the lead. So Mansell in the lead already, made up for a poor start, but I have to say I thought the starter made a bit of a mess of his job there. Alain Prost was creeping badly from the third row of the grid, but I think he checked it and may not be penalised for a jump start. He certainly could be though, so we'll watch out to see if the officials have deemed Prost to have jumped the start. In the meantime, Mansell, fabulous overtaking manoeuvre. He got too much wheel spin, and there was a lot of creeping and jumpingness at the start.
With Nelson Piquet third, and then there is a big gap before the fourth place man, and I'm looking to them now as they come into the complex and out of it for the first time. Down to Luffield, the right-hander. Sure enough, the first 3 are out on their own. It's Berger fourth, one of the Ferraris in 5th place.
Yes, and that gap, I'm sure, was caused by a Schmozzle up at Copse, which put Patrese into a spin. So Mansell through, already pulling away, and Mansell looking pretty comfortable, and the Benetton going extremely well behind Senna.
Mansell leading by nearly a second after the first lap. It's Gerhard Berger in 4th position in the second of the McLarens. Alain Prost is well up. But now look across the circuit and you'll see Prost, and ahead of him, of course, leading the race, Mansell, Senna, and well up to Roberto Moreno.
Yes, Moreno going very well indeed. And Berger in 4th place.
Nigel Mansell has got the race by the throat at the present moment. Look at him. Now there he is. He's out on his own. Behind him is Ayrton Senna. Behind him is the Benetton. Then it's Berger. Berger, of course, who went out after just 4 laps in France. Mansell under the bridge. Senna, Moreno in 3rd position. And then the McLaren of Berger.
Yes, but Berger's not showing on our computer. Patrese, I see, crawling into the pits just opposite us, so he didn't get going properly after the spin. There is Gerhard Berger, but on the computer printout, he is not showing in 4th place. We see him in 4th place on the road. We're trying to find out what's happened, but with the suspicion is that he may have been penalised for a jump start. I said there was a lot of nervousness at the start. The officials held him too long. Well, I understand that people are saying no, but certainly there's Roberto Moreno going very well. Berger in 4th, Prost 5th.
And Maurizio Gugelmin in 6th place. That's the highest position that a Leighton House car has had this season. And the first retirement of the British Grand Prix is Patrese, Riccardo Patrese, a very, very sad man. And this is what happened.
And here we see the start now from onboard Patrese's car. Remember, we saw him off on the side of the track at Copse. Let's see from his point of view what happened.
Behind his teammate Alain Prost, who you just saw going out of the picture. Meantime, Nigel Mansell has completed 7 laps in this 59-lap race, and his lead now over Senna is a massive 8.7 seconds at this stage of the race.
And we better watch for Alain Prost, because behind, with the exception of Mansell, who is really having a very easy time, just as we expected, on his own. That's from onboard Mansell's car, going down the Hanger Straight to Stowe Corner, now onto the brakes, into Stowe Corner, 4th gear, staying in tight, keeps going round to the right, and now down a little squirt through the Vale, hard on the brakes again, 2nd gear. This is where you need the semi-automatic gearbox, because you can change gear as you corner. As you're going away, out through Club Corner, the old Club Corner. And into the pits goes one of the Delaras. I think that was Leto, possibly. JJ Leto, short race for him. He'd qualified well. The Delara team going very well. We stay with Nigel Mansell. He's gone under the bridge, round the mighty bridge corner, and now into the 2nd gear complex, and he's using that flick gear change with his fingertips behind the steering wheel. It's a rocking lever. Now, you watch, you can see him flick. If you watch his hand carefully, it's a little bit difficult to see. Up through the gearbox, Mansell to complete 8 laps, and leading very comfortably indeed. But the fastest man on the circuit, other than Mansell at the moment, is Alain Prost, who's now caught Gerhard Berger, and will be starting to look for a way round Gerhard Berger. Quicker than both the McLarens he has been for the last couple of laps. And Jean Alesi is also showing good Ferrari form behind him. So the 2 Ferraris are starting to put the McLarens under pressure. It looks to me Prost is already there behind Berger, and Alesi is catching them.
Alain Prost was not entirely happy with his 643 Ferrari. Look at him, he's visibly catching Gerhard Berger in 3rd position in the red and white McLaren. I was saying Prost wasn't entirely happy with the balance and the handling of his Ferrari yesterday, but they've been working on it. He had the half-hour warm-up period this morning when he appears to have got it absolutely right. And of course, nobody has got as much experience of Grand Prix racing except Riccardo Patrese as Alain Prost, and he's using every atom of it at the present moment. He's within sight of the gearbox of Gerhard Berger's McLaren now. Berger 3rd, Prost 4th, Alesi 5th, Moreno 6th, Gugelmin 7th, Piquet in 8th position, Modena 9th, De Cesare is 10th, Capelli 11th, Martin Brundle is in 12th position, and of course Mansell leads Senna now by getting on for 10 seconds. And Nigel Mansell has completed 9 laps. Senna goes through 10.3 seconds behind. This is the battle. Berger 3rd, Prost 4th, down to Copse. Now at Copse, it's a 5th gear corner. They approach it, are getting on for 180 miles an hour. Now they're up into 6th gear on the approach to the Beckett's complex.
And this is where Prost will want to get very tight behind Berger if he can, so that he can get the toe, and he's not really close enough, I don't think, to get the toe down to Stowe Corner to outbrake him going in. Well, he's not too far away, but maybe not just quite close enough to duck out. Let's have a look. He'll get another chance in the Vale. Now, if he can get a good run round here, he'll be looking to go down the inside into the left-hander in the Vale, 2nd gear. Not close enough. Berger also in a position to defend that had he been attacked by Prost. And this will be an interesting battle, particularly to see if the Honda V12... Down the outside, Berger defending through Bridge Corner. Nothing to do here around the complex. And it's going to be a matter of positioning himself, and I think Prost his preferred place would be on the Hanger Straight. So for that, he has to start the positioning now. I don't think he can really try and dive inside into Copse. Unless he can get alongside. Well, if he gets alongside, nope. And if that's cost him some space, he needs to be very tight on the gearbox of the McLaren when he exits the left-right-left. Sorry, right-left-right, I mean, of this one.
And it will not have escaped you that Ayrton Senna is within sight now of Gerhard Berger, who has got Alain Prost in fourth position right behind him, and that Alesi in the second Ferrari is catching his teammate as Alain Prost makes another passing effort and is again rebuffed by Gerhard Berger. And you would think that this would enable Ayrton Senna to pull away from his teammate Berger and from the two Ferraris. It's getting very close indeed now for third, fourth and fifth place, Berger, Prost and Alesi, but Senna is not in fact doing so. Nigel Mansell, by the way, leads now by 11.3 seconds, still lapping consistently in under 1 minute 30 seconds, and there he is completely on his own. He's got an enormous lead now. We're on lap 11, but this is the fight. And behind Alesi, who is in fourth position, the rest of the 25 runners who started this race, because, as I said earlier on, the unfortunate Michele Alboreto in the footwork, despite all the enormous amount of work that had been done at Milton Keynes, failed to get away. So, into Copse. The McLaren with the Honda V12 engine, and Berger's pulled out a little from Prost, who was closer on the previous lap, but Alesi meantime is grimly closing up. So Williams leads McLaren second, McLaren third, Ferrari fourth, Ferrari fifth, out of Chapel, down the Hangar Straight. This is where Prost might get through, but he needs to be closer than this. Meantime, Andre de Cesaris has gone into the pits from 10th position, which means Martin Brundle has moved up to that place, getting closer to the magic 7th position that they need.
Yes, that'll be a big disappointment for the Jordan team, because de Cesaris was third fastest in the warm-up this morning. That's in race trim, on race tyres and with full tanks, and that was evidence of yet further progress by the Jordan team. Now, Berger still fending off Prost, and now Alesi has joined in, right up on Prost there. And if I was Prost, I wouldn't be too unhappy about that, because Alesi can maybe find a way around Berger. Berger's a hard man to pass, and it may be not a bad idea to let the young and hard-charging Jean Alesi do the dirty work and try and find a way around Berger, because there's a chance that between them they might go off and leave Prost with a clear track. And that, I have to say, that thought will not have escaped Prost's assessment of the equation of the various possibilities.
It is my guess that Ayrton Senna has already in this race, as he did in France last week, settled for a high placing. I'm sure he knows, indeed I know he knows, that the McLaren is not quick enough to beat the Williams, so he will be saying second place will do for me, because I have 48 points in the World Championship. If I can keep building points, that's good, because every point in the World Championship counts this season, and second place is as good as he could possibly expect, given the dominance of the one Williams that's left in this race after Riccardo Patresi's misfortune in the opening lap. Well, Alesi now has picked up the cudgels by hammering past Alain Prost. James says he may be able to give a harder time to Gerhard Berger. We're soon going to be able to see.
Yes, at the moment he doesn't seem able to get as close to Berger as Prost did, and that won't be very helpful in Prost's thinking. But it's interesting also to see that Prost has actually taken the opportunity to sit back just a little bit. You see, he's giving him a little bit of space, which makes me think that he's taking a rest and also giving them room to have their own fight, and then he'll watch the results of that fight before he decides what to do next. So you see the lead that Senna has over them, not a big one, but Senna certainly will be racing for a good placing here, and anything he can pick up from retirements, because After all, there's only one Williams left out of two at the moment, and still a lot of Grand Prix to go.
Now, while we look down from the helicopter at Gerhard Berger in third place as they go into the complex, they being Berger third, Alesi fourth, and closing right up on Berger as he did on Prost on the previous lap.
Yes, and I think that was a mistake of inexperience by Alesi, because he was no way he was going to pass Berger there, but he's shown his hand, and the way he did it to Prost clearly jumped Prost and surprised him, but Berger, I'm sure, will have been paying enough attention to have seen that, and he will know to defend against that in the future. So that's a bad tactical error by Alesi. He's given himself away.
On lap 17 out of 59, as you look at the battle for third between Berger, McLaren, Alesi Ferrari and Prost Ferrari, Nigel Mansell leads Ayrton Senna by 16.2 seconds. Senna is only 4 seconds ahead of number 2, which is Gerhard Berger, and then there's that tight battle but with Alesi and Prost right behind him. Now Prost in 5th position, that's number 27, is 10 seconds ahead of Roberto Moreno, number 19, who is in 6th. Moreno is just 1.6 seconds ahead of his teammate, number 20, Nelson Piquet, who is 7th. Then there's another gap, nearly 14 seconds before Stefano Modena is Emanuele Pirro. 14th is Nakajima, 15th is Boutsen. Johnny Herbert is hammering along as he did in France last Sunday. He's 16th in the Lotus Judd. And Mansell is now on lap 18. Just a bit of a twitch there from Berger's McLaren. He's under pressure all the time, of course. But Gerhard Berger, who has got 5 Grand Prix wins under his belt, this is his 107th Grand Prix. Now there's Senna second, and you can see how close the battle for third is. That's Alesi 4th and Prost 5th.
Yes, but the pressure for Berger isn't quite as great as it was in the first few laps of having Prost behind him, because he's down. That's Capelli, who's had a spin. He's off on the side of the track. Has he kept the engine running? And the way he's parked there makes me think maybe he has stalled it, because, yes, steering wheel off. Going to have to move that car, but I'm sure they can do that easily enough. But the pressure back to the battle, the pressure on Berger isn't so hard now, because he has seen that his Honda engine's got enough power on the straights to make it very difficult, and that so long as he makes no mistakes, the Ferraris are really going to have to find a way round him, and that gives a little bit of comfort. He doesn't have to hurry, because the one thing he doesn't want to do is to make a mistake. It doesn't matter if he goes slowly around the corners, so long as he goes cleanly round them, because that way there's nothing they can do. They can't pass him in the middle of a corner, and when they get onto the straight, so long as he's clean out of the corner, he's got the power. And tremendous shot of that trackside camera at Bridge Corner, as we see the rescue tow truck going in there to remove the Leighton House car.
Well, I've got some marvellous news for the footwork team people at Milton Keynes. Michele Alboreto has not only got going from the pit lane, I told you he hadn't started from the grid, and indeed he hadn't, but he's in 20th position, and this is lap 19 in the British Grand Prix, and I don't know what poor Ivan Capelli has to do this season to succeed, because he has now retired his Leighton House with its Ilmor V10 engine from every Grand Prix in which he has started. And this is the man who has led Grand Prix, who led the French Grand Prix so brilliantly for so long last year, but he seems to be fated thus far not to finish. 3rd, 4th, 5th, no change. Yes, Nigel Mansell is still going. He's on lap 19, he leads by nearly 17 seconds, and there he is. Well, let's have a look at Nigel Mansell now. He's driving absolutely impeccably. He's absolutely at the top of his form. He's tremendously confident. He's been very, very, very good-humoured all through the practice sessions. He's been giving umpteen interviews. There's been enormous pressure on him, but he's had the confidence of knowing that he's got the best car, but having won the French Grand Prix and having done well in the previous races, but having been let down by the car rather than himself. And as I said earlier on, there's the indication that he's got the fastest lap at 131.45 miles an hour. and he's 18 seconds ahead of Senna now. He's getting up towards this traditional cushion they look for of 20 seconds, and he's the fastest on the track.
Yes, and taking it very easily, but this is the battle that where the excitement is at the moment. And I have to say that I think Prost may regret the fact that he allowed teammate Jean Alesi to jump him, because Alesi seems to be unable to get as close to Berger as Alain Prost did. Mind you, I have to say that Alesi will probably attempt to an overtaking mover from further back than Prost would, but Alesi doesn't seem, from his car's performance, to be able to get right under Berger's rear wing in the way that Prost was able to earlier. So in a way, Prost probably has more chance, and maybe they can communicate via their pits, because they can't talk direct to each other from the cars, but if they can communicate via the pit, it might be Prost might be saying to them, ask young Jean to step aside for just a second and let me back in front so that I can have a go. They see the slide there from Alesi's car almost onto the camera, which is buried in the curve. Trying to pass a back marker at the spot he's made his own earlier in the race, but he was doing it from too far behind and he just wasn't seen. And you have to say that that was a self-inflicted accident by Alesi in a little bit of impetuosity, really.
Hitting Eric Bernard's Lola. And this is Nigel Mansell that we're riding with now into Stowe Corner. 100 miles an hour, out of it into this new section at the Vale. Curves left, drops downhill, climbs slightly into that second gear left-hander before the looping right at club. And Nigel Mansell now leads Ayrton Senna by 23 seconds. And although Senna closed the lap times between himself and Mansell at one point in the race, Mansell is now lapping quicker, 128.1 compared with 129.7. But significantly, Prost, who is 14 seconds behind Senna, Prost in third place, is lapping a second faster than the Brazilian now. Berger is up into fourth position, Gachot is in fifth place, and behind him Stefano Modena is in the points at sixth.
Well, the interesting thing is, for those who are planning to make tyre stops, they better do them soon, or they certainly won't be making the best use of their two sets of tyres, because we're getting quite near half distance. And remember that the work that the tyres to make it equal is well before half distance for the first set, because the car is that 50% heavier when it starts the race, and it works the first set much harder. There's Mansell, and I'm beginning to get the feeling that he might want to stay on one set for the whole race. He's certainly got, if he hasn't got a wear problem, then he can afford to do it, because he's not running nearly at full speed. He's got, there you go on the caption, 24 seconds nearly on Senna, so he's really got a very comfortable position. No reason to make a tyre stop when you don't absolutely have to, because there's always a risk involved. The car can stall, there can be things can go wrong in a tyre stop, so if you don't have to make one, you don't. Mansell can afford that luxury, but I don't know about the others.
To show you how comfortably Nigel Mansell is driving by his standards, he's lapping in about 128.7, whereas this morning in full race trim, race tyres and full tanks, he was lapping in 126.8. So he's lapping 2 seconds outside the time that he did this morning. And here is a tip for when Mansell comes in to change tyres, if he comes in to change tyres. You will remember, those of you who watched the French Grand Prix, that and Mansell waving to get Stefano Modena to move out of the way, but I was saying you'll remember that both Mansell and Riccardo Patrese had long pit stops, 10 and 12 seconds, but since then the wheel nuts have been redesigned in just a week to enable them to make a quicker pit stop. And Alain Prost, team mechanics in the Ferrari position, are getting ready to bring the Frenchman in. They're doing it really quickly. Prost is in third place, and he's 12.6 seconds behind Senna, who is second now.
Well, I'm not sure that Prost's brain is working as well as it used to, because here is Prost approaching us. The Ferrari team are getting tyres ready in a bit of a panic for him. But quite frankly, with that spin going onto the dirt, the tyres, when they're hot, they're so sticky, they pick up all that gravel and stuff, and it takes 2 or 3 laps sometimes to clean the tyres off, to get it all off. And Mika Hakkinen showed what should be done. A quick thinking decision. He had nearly half a lap in which to do it, but to come straight in. And that is the Williams pit we're looking at, so maybe they're getting ready for Mansell. So here is Prost. Going through the Vale, that's where he went off. Now into Club Corner. Car winding up through the gearbox. And then the Abbey under the bridge, nearly flat out through Bridge Corner. And then we've got the stadium complex here, and we'll see if Alain Prost then peels off right into the pits for fresh rubber. He's passed half distance, so this won't be the best use of the available tyres, and Prost is staying out there, so no exit to the pit road this time for Alain Prost.
In the meantime, Ayrton Senna's race plan is very obvious indeed. With Mansell now 25 seconds ahead of him, it's quite clear that the Brazilian is settling for second in Britain as he settled for third in France. There he is in the background, because even if Nigel Mansell wins this race and gets the maximum 10 points, if Ayrton Senna finishes second to get 6 points, it would mean that Senna would still be 21 points ahead of Nigel Mansell in the World Championship, i.e. Mansell would only have closed the gap by 4 points, the difference between first 10 points and second 6 points. So Senna will be quite happy to drive round, knowing that both McLaren and Honda have got better cars coming for Germany.
And Mansell on his way into the pits. There we have him, Nigel Mansell coming in. So the Williams team are getting those tyres ready for him, and it seems a strange decision to make their tyre stop so late, because it is well past the best time to do it, and they weren't under any pressure. So, but the only possible result of that is that, and that was a good quick stop, good routine stop, as Senna goes past waving at the Jordan car in front of him, trying to get past him, and he's having difficulty in getting through. But it may be, though, that they looked at the tyres from the other Goodyear runners and information that they achieved.
Well, you can see how close it is now between Nigel Mansell and Ayrton Senna. Mansell having completed his pit stop in 8.4 seconds, and that shows that all the hard work by the Williams design and construction people at Didcot was worthwhile. But now we really have a race on our hands for the lead, because Senna, who of course has not taken on new tyres, is closing up on Nigel Mansell, who did well to get out of the pit lane in front of the McLaren. But Mansell will have an advantage. Very soon his tyres will be up to full race temperature, and he's got a new set of Goodyears on, whereas Ayrton Senna has got a very worn set now. And even if the Brazilian decides to go through for the full race on the C compound, which is what we expected, he will be at a disadvantage from now on. Lap 37 out of 59 in the British Grand Prix. Mansell leads Ayrton Senna. Alain Prost is third. Gerhard Berger is fourth. Up into fifth place has come Bertrand Gachot in the Jordan Ford. Sixth is Stefano Modena in the Tyrrell. Seventh is Nelson Piquet's Benetton. Eighth is Blundell. So he's 1 place off the seventh at Brabham lead.
And that is De Cesaris, and he's been in front of Senna for several laps, and Senna is beginning to get cross, and the reformed Andrea De Cesaris is was going back to his old ways. Well, Senna has finally got past, but that's taken him a good 3 laps to achieve, and he won't be best pleased with De Cesaris then, when he had Mansell just in front of him and a possible chance to challenge for the lead. Although I think even Senna would concede, as Mansell weaves about trying to pick up the toe behind the Tyrrell there. But I think he would concede. There's Frank Williams watching everything eagle-eyed on the television, but I think Senna would concede that Mansell on fresh tyres is really much too much, and in the Williams for Senna to do anything about. But at the same time, it's nice to show your nose and have a bit of a nibble at him to put him under pressure.
I thought Nigel Mansell was going to be held up by Satoru Nakajima in the Tyrrell Honda there, but the Japanese driver moved over and led him through. So it's lap 38 now, that's the order. 5 is Mansell leading, 1 is Senna second, 27 is Prost third, 2 is Berger fourth, 32 is Bertrand Gachot in the points again for the Jordan team, and in 6th position Stefano Modena was number 4. 7th is Nelson Piquet, in 8th position Mark Blundell. Nakajima is 9th, having just been lapped by Nigel Mansell. 10th is De Cesaris, so both the Jordans are in the top 10. Martini is 11th, and Johnny Herbert is in 12th place in the Lotus, having finished 10th in France last weekend. A real fillip and encouragement for the Lotus people at Hethel. So, Senna. Now, his last lap time was exactly a second slower than Nigel Mansell, who passes Mark Blundell in the Brabham Yamaha, who moves over and lets him through. And I remind you that Blundell is in 8th position. Mark, who has driven extremely well in his first season of Grand Prix racing, has yet to finish higher than 11th. He was in 9th place in France when he went off and hit the pit wall. Stepped out of the car okay, but his race was over. And so now the race has settled down for a bit with Alesi, of course, out of the picture, thanks to that nose job that he had to have done on the Ferrari. Indeed, he's a long, long way behind now and out of the race, effectively. So Mansell on his 39th lap. It's getting towards countdown time now for the Englishman who won in 1986 and 1987.
Yes, I feel that maybe the Williams team decided to change Mansell's tyres as a precaution against possible blistering or even punctures late in the race, because in terms of speed there was no reason to do it, and it was a risk. But Mansell, as a result of the fresh tyres, you see, look, there is a new fastest lap, and it's way quicker than anybody else. So he can soon put a lot of daylight between himself and Senna, because there's no way that Senna can match that speed. He'd be pushed to go 2 seconds slower than that. He'd be quite happy if he could do that speed for the rest of the race, mid-28.5.
Well, Nigel's actually giving Senna a taste of his own medicine, because Senna is famous for his forceful tactics in cutting through the field and lapping people. He has a reputation of having people move over as soon as they see that red and white shape with the yellow blob on top of it, which is the helmet with Senna's head inside it. But Senna was held up there, no doubt about it, whereas Nigel Mansell had got past Nakajima, who is being chased by De Cesaris in 10th position. And Senna now, who was only a second or so behind Mansell when the Englishman came out of the pits, is now 6.5 seconds behind. But still, I say again, Senna will not be unhappy with this situation. Of course, he would like to win his 31st victory, but he will be happy with second place and the 6 points that go with it, because after all, Silverstone and the British Grand Prix, important as they are but 1/16th of what these men are racing for, and that's the World Championship. For the British Motorcycle Grand Prix years ago, you come up over the crest, and that's where Andrea De Cesaris lost it. So now Nigel Mansell still leads, but now in 3rd position behind Senna, it's Gerhard Berger, with Alain Prost having gone into the pits. So this will be a matter of joy for Ron Dennis, the head of the McLaren team, because his men in 2nd and 3rd places are on 10 points for the Constructors' Championship, and since Williams were getting pretty close to them, they will be very welcome indeed. 5 Mansell leads, 1 Senna second, 2 Berger third, 27 Alain Prost down to 4th position. Bertrand Gachot, however, in the Jordan is still in 5th position. Up to 6th has come Modena, 7th is Nelson Piquet, 8th Satoru Nakajima, 9th Martini, 10th Johnny Herbert, as he was in the French Grand Prix. Mark Blundell is 11th, and Emmanuel Pirot is in 12th place. Senna is driving an impeccable race. I've heard an awful lot of nonsense here at Silverstone about Senna. People have been saying he's a spent force and he's over the hill. Nothing, believe me, could be further from the truth. He's in a car which is not as good as he would like it to be, and yet he has been consistently doing well and getting places. Third place in France, third place in Mexico, and he's on target for second place here at Silverstone, which really is the best he could have hoped for. I mean, he had every reason to expect that he would be caught and passed by Riccardo Patrese, as well as Nigel Mansell, who took him on the first lap, and we're with Nigel now on his 46th lap out of 59 now. Not very far to go as he goes round the complex, coming up to the right-hander and out of the corner at Woodcote, into this straight, down towards Copse Corner. There's his pit board, place 1, plus 18 seconds, and the Union Jack to show that it's the signal for Nigel Mansell. Had it been Riccardo Patrese, it would have been the Italian colours, but Riccardo Patrese, of course, out after that confrontation on lap 1.
And maybe they didn't give him the signal about laps to go, because I think that was 13 laps to go, and maybe they didn't like to hang that out, because normally they might have given him that bit of info as well. So Mansell having it very easy now. He's eased up again on speed, put his fresh tyres on, which was a slightly late decision, but then, as I say, it may have been from information supplied by Goodyear that the tyres were a bit marginal about lasting safely for the distance. They had the luxury of a big enough lead to be able to change and get out still in first place, which they did, but wasn't by that much. And then Mansell put in a few really charging laps, took him off to a big lead with the benefit of fresh rubber and the superb performance of the Williams Renault. And now he's back in his dominant position. Berger has moved up to second, but Prost on fresh rubber is now chasing Berger, and that's the battle of the race. Berger in third place, Prost in fourth. Senna has driven a very canny tactical race to maintain is some 8.8 seconds behind Gerhard Berger and chasing.
Yes, how the wheel of fortune in Grand Prix racing turns, because, as I have said before, for the first 4 races of 1991, it really looked as though we were in for a repeat of 1988, when the McLaren team won 15 out of the 16 races and would have won the 16th had Jean-Louis Schlesser in the Williams not harpooned Ayrton Senna leading at Monza. They would have had a clean run, and that was their ambition for this year, after having won in Phoenix, Brazil, San Marino, Monaco, only to have their hopes dashed by Nelson Piquet's victory in Canada, and then the fact that they were no longer the top team confirmed by Riccardo Patrese and Mansell's victories in Mexico and France. So let's have a look at how Nigel Mansell is tackling the race and how Gerhard Berger is, because we haven't seen all that much of Berger in Grand Prix racing this year on account of the fact that he retired from all the 5 Grand Prix previously except San Marino and Brazil. But Gerhard is not a man to be underestimated, with 5 wins, 1 for the Benetton team and 4 for Ferrari. And then he... Now look for there's Berger, and only 7 seconds behind him is Alain Prost after his pit stop. There is the Frenchman, and I'll be interested to see how their lap times compare. Mansell is going round in 1 minute 27.5 at the moment. Now there is Berger, third behind Senna, coming up to complete the lap. Look for Alain Prost in the background, who's got to pass Johnny Herbert and the Minardi Ferrari behind him as Berger comes through to complete the lap. And Silverstone's been lucky, fortunate that the weather's held as well as it has. It's been an ideal day for racing, and now Berger is coming through to complete his 49th lap. And now we'll see what the difference is between them. Well, it's 11 seconds between Senna and Berger, and it's 4 seconds between Berger and Prost, just about 5 seconds. So, race order on this, the 49th lap. Nigel Mansell leading Ayrton Senna by 21.5 seconds. Then Berger in third place, who is 5 seconds ahead of Prost. And Prost is actually gaining very rapidly, 2.5 seconds a lap faster than Berger. He will be pushing for third place soon. Alain Prost, who is in fourth place in the World Championship, and Nigel Mansell is on his 50th lap now. Now it is countdown time for the Englishman. He's on lap 50. It's a 59-lap race. Nigel Mansell won the British Grand Prix in 1986, 1987. The British Grand Prix has always been the one where he has shone in particular in response to the stimulus of his home crowd, and that is Prost. Now, Prost is the quickest man on the circuit at the present moment. I'll be able to tell you in a moment how the lap that he's about to complete on the comparatively new tyres, because it's not long since he came in. He's coming up to lap Johnny Herbert, the Englishman in the Lotus, who is now in 9th position, and he's ahead of Mark Blundell, who is in 11th place. It looks as though Brabham, sadly, are going to have to face up to pre-qualifying after the British Grand Prix, and Johnny Herbert is driving magnificently and confirming the faith that Peter Collins has in him.
Yes, and Prost is catching Berger. Not so much then, he was a bit held up, and Berger is really responding to the challenge. Berger has put in just on that last lap his fastest lap of the race, and so these two, although they're not line astern, they're not in combat, and there is a clear track between them, so Prost has a clear run at Gerhard Berger.
So there is the top Grand Prix driver of the last decade, Alain Prost. I told you about his record, and he's an extremely nice man to go with it too. So Mansell leads, Senna second, Berger third, Prost is catching him. Now this is Bertrand Gachot, and this is the almost storybook story of the Jordan team, because Eddie Jordan has brought a Formula One team into Grand Prix racing this year after having been in Formula 3000, Formula 3. He took the decision to get into Grand Prix racing, and everything has come magnificently right for him. He took on Gary Anderson as his designer. He took on a lot of other star people from other teams and from people he knew in the racing business. They put together this really beautiful motor car. Eddie Jordan, being an Irishman with the gift of the Blarney, managed to persuade Michael Kranifus, the Ford Supremo, to let him have the Ford V8 works engine that other teams would have loved to have, and his drivers have repaid him. Bertrand Gachot is in 5th place in the British Grand Prix, chasing Alain Prost, but a long way behind him, and that's Emanuele Pirro. And behind Bertrand Gachot in 6th position, 3 times world champion Nelson Piquet, but not a great challenge at the present moment. That was him. There he is now in the new Benetton, the B191, which, like the Jordan, has a Ford HB V8 engine, but that has the very latest specification, whereas the Jordan is still racing with one of last year's spec engines. So Gachot is driving a superb race. That's number 32, the man who won at Le Mans. He's already had 2 points from a 5th place in Canada this year. And we're back now looking at Alain Prost in 3rd position. Can he do anything about Gerhard Berger and the gap that exists between the Ferrari number 27 and number 2, Gerhard Berger's McLaren? Senna is not doing anything at all about Mansell, who still leads the Brazilian by 23 seconds. So, on lap 51, Mansell leads, Senna 2nd, Berger 3rd, Prost 4th, Gachot 5th, Piquet 6th, Modena 7th, and Piquet is a lap behind now, as of course is Modena. Nakajima is 8th, Johnny Herbert is a magnificent 9th, Martini is 10th, Mark Blundell is 11th, Emanuele Pirro is in 12th position. Now there's Berger. Look at him across the line, the white line, and there's Prost behind him.
Yes, and in fact Berger has responded to the challenge from Prost. He's going quicker and quicker. He's done another fastest lap of his for the race, and he is managing to fend Prost off, and I don't think Prost is going to be able to catch him now, and he may not even bother to maintain the chase or not at absolutely 11/10ths commitment, because Berger has shown Prost that he can withstand the challenge.
Well, it's almost been a racing demonstration by Nigel Mansell. I said before the race began, he was at the top of his very considerable form. And he has proved it here at Silverstone today. Taking the lead on the first lap, holding it all the way, coming in for his tyre stop. He maybe left it a bit too late, but in the event, it really didn't matter because he still got out of the pits in front of Ayrton Senna, and I have no doubt that if he'd come out of the pits behind Ayrton Senna, being on new tyres, he would rapidly have caught and passed the Brazilian, because I can't see Senna trying very hard to keep him back, knowing, as I have said before, Senna, that if he finished second, he would be doing extraordinarily well, and he would still have a massive lead in the World Championship with another 8 races to go. But if it goes on like this, there's no guarantee that it will. The remaining 8 races in the World Championship could be one of real nail-biting excitement. Mansell hasn't altogether given up hopes of winning the World Championship for the first time. He's come pretty close to it several times. Finished second, finished fourth, nearly won it until that blowout that we all remember in the Australian Grand Prix, going down the Brabham Straight. And the crowd is starting to work itself into a lava here, supporting their man. They've been supporting coming here. I've never seen a driver who has got his public by the throat the way Nigel Mansell has. Well, he's certainly repaid everybody here and everybody who is watching, who support him. There you see the flags waving in the background, the Union Jacks. Nigel Mansell is now on his 54th lap in this 59-lap race. I am certainly not going to get agitated at this stage of the race, because I remember all too clearly doing so in Canada, as Mansell, with a commanding lead, came down to the last corner, only to stop with a problem that still hasn't been completely nailed as far as the public is concerned. And Mansell now is up behind Bertrand Gachot. He's up to the 5th place man, and he goes through now, and the only people who are on the same lap now as Mansell are Alain Prost, who is in 4th position, Gerhard Berger, who is 3rd, and Ayrton Senna in 2nd place. And Mansell is 25 seconds ahead of Senna. He's just absolutely driven Senna and the McLaren into the ground in this race, Mansell and Williams. And we haven't mentioned the word yet, Renault, and all credit to Renault, who decided to come back into Grand Prix racing with their V10 engine, which, under the control of their top technician Bernard Dudot, they have patiently developed and developed and developed until it is now, without doubt and without exception, as we look at Nigel Mansell with the word Renault over his visor, it's without doubt the best Grand Prix engine of the day. But Honda aren't taking that lying down, the research and development, and that's a Brabham. It's Blundell. Oh, Mark Blundell. He really does have the most appalling luck under the bridge. You remember he crashed in the French Grand Prix. Well, there's no damage to the car there except to the car itself. I think the engine's a bit part worn from the look of the smoke.
Yes, all coming out of the airbox. That looks like a comprehensive internal blow-up to the engine, and that was indeed a pity. So back with Mansell going serenely on his way, and really the shame of it is that this race has been too easy for Mansell. The Williams has been immensely superior. Patrese went out early on, and that really left him with very little hard racing to do. In fact, no hard racing. He got swept past Senna on the first lap, and all he'd had to do is judge his pace to the others and make one decision about a tyre stop. So down to Stowe Corner, keeping in tight 4th gear these days as the corner goes on, and then now into the Vale. Short squirt, that's the bit of curb there that tripped Alain Prost up earlier in the race, you may remember. 2nd gear there, and then accelerating up through the gearbox. And then through the Fat Abbey curve, See if we can see the marks of where the Jordan had its problem. Nope, couldn't see that, but bridge corner and then down into the complex. Second gear, the squirt, second gear again. Down the squirt, back into second. And there we go, still in second. And now accelerating way over the start-finish line, up through the gearbox into sixth gear.
3 laps to go now, including the one he's on, and as Frank Williams watches, Nigel Mansell drives. Fastest in both practice sessions on Friday. Fastest in both practice sessions on Saturday. Fastest in the warm-up this morning. He's dominated the race, leading all the way, and he has put up the fastest lap and therefore a record lap on this much revised Silverstone circuit of 1 minute 26.379. He did that on lap 43 when, of course, he was out after his tyre stop, and he leads Ayrton Senna now on lap 57 out of 59 by 23.5 seconds. Senna well ahead of Gerhard Berger, his third position teammate. Alain Prost in fourth place, and I don't think he can improve on it now. Bertrand Gachot, if Gachot finishes in fifth position where he is now, it will mean that the Jordan Ford team, who after all are a pre-qualification team, before they can even get to practice, try to get on the starting grid of 26, they have to pre-qualify, but they will have scored World Championship points in the last 4 Grand Prix, Britain, France, Mexico and Canada, from Andrea de Cesaris and Bertrand Gachot, provided Gachot finishes fifth where he is now. Nelson Piquet is in sixth position, and like Gachot, 1 lap.
And there is Ayrton Senna, must be very disappointed, but he has had luck this year already.
Well, a race is never over until the drivers see the checkered flag. Nigel Mansell has seen it. Ayrton Senna is not going to see it. Berger finishes second. Alain Prost has finished in third position. Now that will mean that Senna should finish in fourth place because he was further on the last lap than Nelson Piquet, who had already been lapped. But let us just...
And in fact, that's brave stuff by Senna, because you need a lot of strength to hold on to one of those things. And at the end of a long Grand Prix, the arms aren't feeling too strong. But Mansell taking it very slowly. You're aware that it's not a happy thing.
Early stops, he could have driven on. It was the decent thing to do, and as I said, it disproves the belief that there was enmity between the two men. So Nigel Mansell, a very, very justified and a very, very happy winner of his third British Grand Prix, carries home the man who leads the championship still by 21 points. It's going to get closer and closer from now on. We go to Germany on July the 28th. Then to Hungary, Belgium, Italy, Portugal, Spain, Japan, and we finish the Grand Prix season of 1991 in Australia at Adelaide on November the 3rd. So there's a lot of racing mileage to be done. McLaren have got to catch up. Williams will try to stay ahead. Ferrari, of course, will be trying equally hard to close on both of them. And with the news that Tom Walkinshaw has bought into the Benetton team, we can expect that to be pulled very tightly together with the famous Walkinshaw leadership and discipline applied. The Grand Prix season of 1991 is getting better and better, but for Britain and for the spectators at Silverstone, this will do very nicely. Thank you. Nigel Mansell wins. The crowd invade the pit lane, and being British, as soon as they are asked to go back, they'll go back. What a wonderful scene. Mansell won the British Grand Prix by 42 seconds from Gerhard Berger. Alain Prost finished in third place. Only those three completed the full distance. Thanks for the ride, Nige, says Ayrton Senna, who finished in fourth place, 1 lap down, ahead of Nelson Piquet fifth, Bertrand Gachot completes the race in the points for Jordan, with Modena 7th, Nakajima 8th, Martini 9th, Pirro 10th, Morbidelli 11th, Hakkinen 12th in the second Lotus, JJ Leto in 13th place, and Johnny Herbert struck a problem at the end but still finished in 14th position. So now the cars will go to the Parc Fermé. And in the Parc Fermé, they will be examined by FISA officials, the Fédération Internationale Sportive Automobile, the governing body of world motorsport. Charlie Whiting, the ex-Brabham chief mechanic, will be there to make sure that everything is in order. But a Williams-Renault won, and that means to say, of course, that that's the third Grand Prix in succession that a Renault engine has won for the Williams team. Patrese in Mexico, Mansell in France, Mansell in Britain. It's getting closer and closer and more interesting all the time. The Honda V12 powered McLaren of Gerhard Berger second, and then of course the V12 Ferrari powered Ferrari of Alain Prost in third place. Hard luck for Ayrton Senna, but he still gets 3 points to add to the 48 that he already had. So the gap is actually closer than I had prophesied at the time when I expected him to be second, as Mansell comes into the garage. Now, the Drivers' Championship after the first 8 rounds, confirms that Ayrton Senna leads with 51 points ahead of Nigel Mansell, second. In third position, Riccardo Patrese. Fourth, Alain Prost. Fifth, Nelson Piquet. Sixth, Gerhard Berger. Mansell in the magnificent new press centre, the Jimmy Brown Centre, named after the late track manager of Silverstone that built it up over the years, and it's his son Hamish who runs Silverstone now. It's a bit tough on Nigel. He's got to climb all these stairs, but I'm sure he'll find the energy and the adrenaline to do it without a problem. He's a tremendously fit man, puffing his cheeks out a bit. Gary Crumpler, who is the Williams public relations manager, greets his driver home. And they're going into the interview room now. The cars go to the Parc Fermé. The top 3 drivers, Mansell, Berger and Prost, will go into the interview room. And incidentally, a word about Gerhard Berger. That's only his third race finish, and he's yet to finish lower than third. And that's Jean-Marie Balestre, who is the president of FISA. Alain Prost, third position. Nigel Mansell in front of the adoring British crowd, with Monsieur Jean-Marie Balestre. Well done, Nigel. The strange, he led on lap 1 and he led on every one of the other 58 laps. He made the fastest lap, and Alain Prost finishes in third place to take 4 points. And on the left, on the extreme left, receiving the Gold Cup, is Patrick Head, the chief designer, the man who leads the design team at Williams, and I emphasise design team, there he is, because no one man designs a Grand Prix car these days. It's down to a number of specialists in their various departments, engine, chassis, suspension, and so on. And what a wonderful sight that is after all the talk about bad feelings there have been. Nigel Mansell lifts the arms of Gerhard Berger and Alain Prost.
By Mr. Peter Bartel of Foster's.
Oh, now the moment that the photographers dread. It's champagne time. And Patrick Head is getting it. That's what you get for leading the design team, which produced a race-winning car. But it's not too much. Take that, Alain Prost. I know it's childish, but it really is. It's a great way of letting off steam. And Nigel throws, I think it was probably one of his gloves to the crowd. Remember last year when he was driving for Ferrari, he threw his balaclava and both his gloves into the crowd after he had despairingly retired his Ferrari after a magnificent drive. What a wonderful showman Nigel is. They're his crowd, and he is their man. But his day isn't over yet. It's into the interview room to tell the television networks all over the world, and I mean all over the world, because we are talking to Australia, Canada, New Zealand, South Africa, Hong Kong. And there are, of course, commentators from all the European, South American and other countries telling the world about Nigel Mansell's victory in the 1991 British Grand Prix at Silverstone, beating Gerhard Berger's McLaren to second place, Alain Prost Ferrari to third position, Ayrton Senna, his chief rival in the World Championship, to fourth place, Nelson Piquet, 3 times a world champion, fifth position, and Bertrand Gachot for the new superb Jordan Ford team takes 6th position and the 4th consecutive World Championship points position this year. Yes, Prost getting rid of the champagne. Gerhard Berger doesn't actually look particularly pleased about his second place. Yes, I will sign the cup, and he does so. The champagne, rather. Nigel, I wonder if Roseanne makes him look after the silver like that at their Port Erin home. Give it a rub, Nigel. Prost and Berger.
Give him the mic, please.
I love Nigel industriously polishing his cup. And right now, there in the interview room to find out what happened from their point of view is Jonathan Palmer.
Nigel, congratulations on an absolutely superb performance. That was the one the crowd wanted, and it came. Did you have any problems on one looked to be a pretty easy race?
Oh, Jonathan, you know that isn't true. It was a hard race, and I blistered my first set of tyres and had to stop for tyres. I was trying to go the whole race. And then the last 10 laps, I was making half the gear changes I usually make because I had big problems with the gearbox. And in fact, the whole last lap, I went around the last 2 laps in 1 gear. And so I'm just pleased it wasn't any more laps than it was, because God forbid if we would have stopped again on the last lap.
Okay, Gerhard, things didn't seem to start too well. There was an incident with Patrese, then a pit stop earlier on, but this time your luck seemed to change. And whilst it's unfortunate for Ayrton, we're all absolutely thrilled to see you in second place. Any problems for you on the way?
Yeah, I had a big problem because Patrese just went over my front suspension. I had the front suspension bent, and the steering wheel was like this, and I could had all the blister here, and I couldn't even on one side I couldn't steering right. So the tires gone, the first one, quite early, so I had to change tires, and then I just did so smooth as possible to not destroy the second set of tires.
Okay, Alain. It seemed at one time that you weren't going to stop for tyres there, but then after, I think it was the avoidance of the De Cesaris incident, you then came in. Did you plan on stopping for tyres? And if not, could you possibly have caught Gerhard, do you think? Or...
I think so.
but because with the first set I was quite well. In fact, I spun first. I don't know what happened. Alizé lost some oil, got some oil on the screen, and I did a mistake. I touched the curb and I spun. Then the car was going quite well, even at the beginning, but Alizé overtook me in a very small room, and then I got some debris from the Cesaris crash, and I had to stop for tires, but I did not plan to stop. My tires were very good.
Back to Nigel, please.
Nigel, that tyre stop, it seemed a little bit late. Was it purely precautionary, or did you need that second set of tyres?
No, I needed a second set of tyres because of the wheel weights. I think I lost one on the front and one on the back. I know I blistered them, but it was the vibration that made me stop. But the team did a great pit stop and came out. Then other than the last 10 laps when my heart was in my mouth, I mean, I was happy, but oh boy, the last few laps was hurting, because when you pull for a gear and it doesn't go in gear and you're stuck in neutral, you have to get another gear, otherwise everything will stop. And I had about 2 or 3 frights, but I mean, I'm here, so I'm happy.
Well, you were certainly the pre-race favourite here. All the crowd were backing you. How does it feel now to have actually done it here in front of the British crowd at Silverstone?
Well, it's strange, but I probably don't believe it. I mean, the crowd are just incredible, aren't they? I mean, my heart goes out to them. I thank them very much for the support. It is absolutely fantastic. It feels great, honestly.
Nigel Mansell, superb.
Well, that just shows, and there's a Mansell supporter if ever I saw one, that just shows that you can't always believe what you see. Those words of Nigel Mansell confirm that Williams have not overcome their semi-automatic gearbox problem. It means that they've had a problem in every race this year, and just as Senna was lucky to finish in all the first 4 Grand Prix and win them, so obviously was Mansell lucky to finish in the lead and to win here at Silverstone. And of course, Gerhard Berger's drive with the broken front suspension or bent front suspension was equally praiseworthy. But in the end, Nigel Mansell wins the British Grand Prix from Gerhard Berger's McLaren, Alain Prost's Ferrari, Ayrton Senna's McLaren and Nelson Piquet's Benetton, with Bertrand Gachot in the Jordan Ford in 6th place. Stefano Modena 7th a lap down, as was Nakajima in 8th place, Pierluigi Martini in 9th position, Emanuele Pirro 10th, 2 laps down, ahead of Morbidelli 11th, and in 12th place Mika Hakkinen. Then the last 2 finishers, JJ Leto in the Dallara, and 4 laps down, Britain's Johnny Herbert in the Lotus. Well, the crowd is on the circuit. There's the Brazilian flags there, but Ayrton Senna's lead over Nigel Mansell in the World Championship is reduced to, what, 18 points? Riccardo Patrese, 3rd, 11 points behind Nigel Mansell, with Alain Prost in 4th position. And McLaren, thanks to both their men finishing in the points, are now 22 points ahead of Williams Renault, with Ferrari in 3rd place. Well, Benetton, Tyrrell and Jordan in 4th, 5th and 6th places in the Constructors' Championship. It's been a marvellous race. So, a superb, virtually start to finish 18th Grand Prix win for Nigel Mansell. But his revelation after the race that he'd had severe gearbox problems showed that Williams have still got work to do before they can guarantee reliability. A surprise but well-deserved 2nd place for Gerhard Berger in spite of his deranged suspension, and Alain Prost 3rd, the only other driver to go the full distance. Tough luck for Senna, whose problem was fuel starvation, but he still finished in the points at 4th, a lap down ahead of Nelson Piquet. And Bertrand Gachot's 6th place made it a great day for the Jordan team. Senna's last lap problem means his World Championship lead over Mansell has shrunk to 18 points, and that Mansell could still win the championship, because he's now well ahead of Patrese, Prost, Piquet and Berger. In the Constructors' Championship, both McLarens finishing in the top 6 means that the Woking team now head Williams by 12 points, a comfortable situation, with the rest, Ferrari, Benetton, Tyrrell and the superb Jordan team sliding out of touch. Well, the 1991 Grand Prix season's well and truly alive now. In 2 weeks' time, it's the German Grand Prix at Hockenheim.